Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Purpose and Pixie Dust podcast recording. I am Lindsay Dollinger, and I am super excited for you guys to get to hear from our guest today, Conor Brown. Conor Brown is the creator of www.opinion.com. Oh my gosh, that was so many W's. And Connor and I got to meet this fall at Momentum Mastermind Weekend, which you guys have heard me talk about a lot on this podcast with Lou Mangello. So anyway, Connor, tell us all about who you are, what you do, how you got started doing what you do, and we'll go from there.
Thank you so much for having me. That is worldwideweb.wdwopinion.com. How I got started. So I'm a lifelong Disney fan. I always say I was born with Disney in my blood because my mom did a thing called the Disney College Program back in the day, which basically means it's a work study opportunity, kind of like an internship of sorts. So she got to work in the Magic Kingdom. She became a lifelong Disney fan, and I grew up going to the parks all the time. I knew I wanted to follow in her footsteps. So I got to participate on the Disney College Program as well. After I graduated college, I worked front desk at the Yacht and Beach Club Resort. And I also worked on the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which is a roller coaster in Magic Kingdom. So two very different roles, but very, very fun nonetheless. Um, After that, I went back home to just outside DC, put my degree to work in marketing, but I knew I always wanted to have something Disney related to hold on to. That's where I started WDW Opinion, which is a blog and podcast where people can share their perfect Disney experiences. And I help people plan for and daydream about their next perfect Walt Disney World, Disney Cruise Line, Disneyland vacation. So it's a great outlet to do that. It combines my love of Disney with my marketing chops, I guess you could say. And that's where we are now.
I love that. I know a few people who have been through the college program, and I always kind of have this like envy that I didn't really know about it. I don't think anyone from my school or like at least from my immediate friend group ever talked about it. I'm like, I totally would have done that if
Yeah,
I had known,
it's
which is really
interesting.
cool that you knew.
Yeah, because I mean, so I knew through my mom, of course, but
Yeah.
then heard throughout there. And my mom found out about it because there were, back in the day, campus reps. They would just go to campuses and do career fairs and stuff like that, which they still have, but now it's
Hmm.
all internet based and all that
Right.
stuff.
Right, and I do think I heard about it, like, I had just graduated, but it was,
Yeah.
like, too late, and I was like, "Duh," because 'Cause I'm like, "That could have been so cool," like, I wonder if, like, my trajectory would have been different had I done that. So, how long were you there? Was it a semester for you?
So I chose to do it after college. You can
Okay.
basically, to get into it, you have to apply and you have to
Mhm.
be in college when you apply. You don't
Gotcha.
necessarily have to be in college when you participate. So that's why they let in recent graduates. Um,
Okay.
I wanted to study abroad, which I got the opportunity to do. And because of that, I knew I couldn't take off another
Yeah,
semester.
yeah.
That being said, you can go participate on the Disney College Program and receive college credits. That's based on your
Mhm.
school. Disney, at the same time, they also offer weekly classes that you can take in addition to whatever your role is. Again, they might transfer to your school, they might not. But
Right.
since I did it after, um, it's still semester based. So I did the fall program, which was
Okay.
August to about January. Um, and
Mhm.
then I just extended for another program from January to May. Um,
Okay.
they also have, it's called like Fall Advantage, which just means the summer plus fall, and then Spring
Mhm.
Advantage, which means spring plus the
Last
summer
summer.
that you're in
Gotcha.
for.
So is that how you got to do 2 different positions, is because you did it 2 different semesters?
Exactly. So when you
Mhm.
extend, you can only do it for a year. So that's as far as you can extend to. You have a couple of options. You can either extend to a different location and you get put where you get put. You can extend
Mhm.
to a different role, which is a totally different category. So, like, front desk
Mhm.
is a different role from attractions. Or you can just stay where you're at that time if they have availability. I chose to do something totally different because I figured might as well. This is the only
Why not?
opportunity you're
Yeah.
going to do. And that's
Yeah.
where I was able to go from in the resorts to in the actual theme parks.
Which one did you like better? Or is that, like, kind of a loaded question?
It They're so different. And I think that
Yeah.
that's really the super interesting part of it was Yacht and Beach Club, as the crow flies, is only a couple miles away from the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in Magic Kingdom,
Mhm.
but they
Yeah.
feel like worlds apart, and every little thing is totally different, including how you arrive, how you clock in, how your shift goes,
Mhm.
what you do during your shift. On the mine train, on the roller coaster, it's broken up more into 30-minute increments. You're doing this role, this task for 30 minutes, and then you're moving. Where front desk was,
Mhm.
you're on the front desk the entire time of
Entire
your shift.
day. Yeah.
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 So what I liked about Mine Train was seeing people come off, that immediate joy, right?
Mhm.
Um, but you didn't have a whole lot of time to interact with them because you were getting them on as fast as you could so that as many people as possible could experience it. Versus at Yacht and Beach Club, you could see them come back each and every day of their vacation. You could build a relationship with them. But also, when there were issues, you had to resolve that, and you had a long time to resolve that. So, pros and cons with both. I'm glad I did
Yeah.
both.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I feel like you get to meet so many different people, and again, like you said, like, people in different parts of the experience at Disney. Like, the rides is a very different experience than the hotel.
And, there's such a robust international program too. I was working
Mhm.
side by side with people from Brazil, Spain, the United Kingdom, all over the place, China, Japan. So that was really cool to
Yeah.
experience those people that I had never interacted with in my day-to-day life.
Yeah, that is really cool. I like how they do that for sure. Where did you study abroad? Just curious.
Prague in the Czech Republic, and I absolutely loved
Ah,
it. If no if you've
okay.
never If you've never been, you have to go. It's so cool. It's so different than any other part of Europe. It's very affordable, and a really
Mhm.
cool thing is for whatever reason, during World War II, it was just a no-fly zone, basically. So it's, like, perfectly medieval intact.
Reserved.
So
Yeah.
it's really cool.
I took students in a World War II themed tour, summer of 2019, right before it was my last time actually abroad in Europe until this past winter. But anyway, we did Prague for a couple days and
Yeah,
I loved it. It was beautiful.
so cool.
Um, the Jewish part was my favorite, I think,
Yeah,
probably. But
that quarter.
anyway, yeah, yeah, it was really, really neat. So I could definitely talk about Europe with you. But I want to talk a little bit about how you got started with WDW Opinion. Like, what did that look like? Was it just like, I'm just going to do this and see what happens? Did you have kind of a long term plan? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I had a grand plan my whole life. Before I even knew where I was going to go to college, I knew I was going to work for Disney, right? That was the
Okay.
goal. And the
Yeah.
goal for me was simple. It was to do the college program where you're more working in the front lines, right? You're
Hmm.
working on the roller coaster, you're working in the hotels. And then from there, I was going to apply and parlay that into a professional internship. And a Disney professional internship is much more either in the corporate space or in the management space. So you're a
Right.
manager at one of the hotels or whatever. I
Hmm.
wanted to do a professional internship in marketing, communications, advertising, something like that. And then the grand plan was to take that internship and roll it into a full-time gig with the
Hmm.
Disney company and work there for the rest of my life. And I got a third of the way there. I did the college program.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, okay, so then what happened? Did
There you
you
go.
tell
And
us what happened?
then after my first college program stint, I applied to all these internships and just got denied from all of them.
Oh,
So that's when I chose to extend my college program to go over to the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and stay in Fantasyland for a little bit longer, right?
yeah, yep.
As that was winding down, I realized, I could stay here and continue to work on a coaster, an attraction, or in the hotels, or I just have to be true to myself, and I have to try to put my degree to use, my degree that I work so hard for in marketing, basically strategic communications.
Yeah.
So I made the decision to leave Florida, go back home to Maryland, just outside DC, and work in the corporate world. And I said, if Disney ever comes calling back, I'll drop this immediately. I'll drop this like a hot potato and I'll go right back
Yeah.
to them. And as I was working, I was really enjoying my job. I was loving it. The people I worked with were great. It was very interesting. But at the same time, it dawned on me of this thing of like, you're waiting for someone who's never going to reach out to you, right? You have to
Yeah.
go out and make your own opportunities. And when I realized that, I said, well, let's start putting some things into action. How can I, you know, share my passion for this and do it on my terms? And that's
Mhm.
where a blog kind of started.
I
Um,
love that.
Kind of just building something to give yourself opportunities rather than sitting on your heels and waiting for them to come to you, because that's not how it works. You're not
Right.
just going to get presented with this opportunity out of nowhere. You have to
Yeah.
actually put some things into motion and see what it is. And so that's where it started. And as far as long things go, it just kind of started out as something fun. And I think the more work you put into it kind of determines where you're gonna go with it. So I never really had a long-term plan with it.
Yeah.
I just knew I was gonna continue to work and work and work at it.
And it just naturally evolved. So when did the podcast come into play?
It came in, kind of a couple years after the blog. I think I didn't know anything about building a website. I didn't know anything about, you know, content creation like that. I started learning
Right.
some pieces of it from my job and from my
Mhm.
degree and stuff like that, but, that just seemed like the first kind of outlet, the first way to do that. And then I realized, this medium of podcasting was so strong and you could build
Yeah.
such a connection. And I realized of all the podcasts that I listened to, um, I had a stronger connection with those hosts and the likes of that than I did with someone who wrote a blog or something.
Yeah.
So once I started to realize that, I said, "Well, let's give this a shot." I started the podcast with my one of my very, very, very good friends, one of my best friends from college, because I knew starting it alone, like, that was just gonna be very difficult for me to
Yeah.
do. So I started with a partner, with a co-host, and then eventually it kinda morphed into just me. But it was a couple years after the blog where I introduced the podcast aspect to everything.
And when did the blog start?
2017.
Oh, so it's been a while. It's been
Yeah,
a good
yeah,
a good chunk of time. That's
which is
awesome.
yeah, it seems like I don't know, it seems so
Seems like
long, it
yesterday.
seems so
Walked this
short.
a
Yeah,
while ago.
exactly.
Yeah.
But
I get
then
it.
then you start counting on your fingers when 2017 was, and you're like, "Oh my gosh,
I
that
know.
has been a while."
Well, I feel like 2020 and on has just kind of been like 1 year.
There's no more years, it
1
goes
year or
quicker.
like
Yeah,
100.
I
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. It's gone really quick, but at the same time, you're like, "Man."
exactly.
Um, and so how did you start monetizing it to actually make this your thing?
So I think with when, you're setting out to build something online, I think a lot of people think they look at the Mr. Beasts of the world, these huge YouTubers, right? These huge
Yeah,
influencers, and they think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna build a huge audience, and then I'm gonna get sponsors to pay for my stuff, and that's how I'm gonna start doing it.
right.
I think that is, especially now, so, so, so difficult to
Yeah,
do. So, rather than, again, waiting for people to give you that opportunity, you gotta go out and make it. So, I realized, how do I monetize this? I can do it by helping people plan their vacations one-on-one, specifically travel agent side. So,
yeah,
with that, I became a travel agent and offered those services. Again, I had a couple years built up of building relationships with people, but once I rolled that in, that was an opportunity to monetize it, to have them who already trust me reach out and say, "Let's partner together. Let's work,
yeah,
and I'll help you with that." And then additionally, affiliate marketing, which is a more, I think, organic way to
Mhm.
monetize things. There's
Yeah.
less call outs that you have to do. Um, but at the same time, you can be very, very beneficial in what you're doing. Amazon
Yeah.
affiliates, I think, is great, especially when you're coming at it from a travel planning side. You send them a list of stuff. Hey, here's what you need for your next Disney vacation. Before you come here, these are the things you have to buy. And it's useful stuff. It's not just
Yeah.
someone reaching out saying, "Hey, could you sell our product?" when you have no idea what the actual product is.
Yeah.
So those avenues were what I started to explore and what I kind of went full in on
First.
monetization. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I love that. I mean, I don't think it always has to be done this way, but I love how you started with the value and
Yeah.
your website and adding all that content, and then you were adding in the monetization. Because I have a ton of friends who are travel agents, and I definitely think one of the things that could help them is like you're doing, is giving that value. Like you're like, "Hey, I'm the expert. I'm giving you the packing list. I've been to the parks a million times," like because then when they're getting ready to plan their trip, who are they gonna think of? They're gonna think of Connor because he's always posting about it versus someone else who maybe has never even been to Disney, right? Even if they know them.
Exactly. And I think, for every thing that you quote unquote sell, so every time you mention that, hey, I can work with you booking your vacation or whatever, you have to give 5 things before that.
Yeah,
So that's where you start to build those relationships. You give, you give, you give, you give, you give. You ask, and then you give, you give, you give, you give. Because at
yeah,
the same time, a Disney vacation, it's not something you do every month, right? It's not like, you know, uh, uh, it's not like Dunkin' Donuts. Like they have to be everywhere all the time because you always need your coffee. Every single day, you need your coffee. When it comes to a Disney vacation, that's something that you might do once a year, once every other year, once in a lifetime, right?
right.
If you give and you give and you give, you're staying top of mind so that when it is time and you can't make that choice for them. I think that that's where a lot of people stray. They try to force people like, now's the time to do it. Now's the time to take this
Yeah.
vacation. It's way too big of an investment for you to put
Mhm.
that on someone. You
Yeah,
have to kind of step back and say, whenever you're ready, I'm ready to rock as well. And you do
yeah.
that by giving and giving and giving and staying on top so that when they're ready to make that decision, they think of you first.
So, what do you do to almost like help your mindset when you're feeling that impatience? Or even like at the beginning of your business where you're like, I'm putting these blog posts out. Is anyone seeing them? You know what I mean? Like, how did you keep going? Because you know, I think you had a great point. It's not an overnight success. And so many people think it's going to be an overnight success and then they get frustrated and give up. So, what would you tell that person who's like, I feel like I'm doing all the things and like it's not here yet?
You're trying to change your life. You can't change your life overnight. So if you're putting yourself on a path to whatever it is, financial freedom, doing it on your terms, that's something that you're doing to change your life, to set your life up for the better for the long term. So if you think about setting yourself up better for the long term, how can you accept the fact that, oh, it's going to happen really quickly? That doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
Right.
Everything leading up to our lives is long term. We go to school for 12 years, and then we go to college for 4,
Mhm.
and then we work, below management level for so long to get to these levels. So you just have to trust the process, right? And know that the good times are going to come, but it's going to take a while to get there as long as you're providing the correct value. Um,
Mhm.
I think there will come a time where if you're not seeing the results that you want, rather than give up, maybe it's how you're framing it, what you're offering,
Mhm.
what you're putting out there. You can pivot and adjust and go from there. That's going to take a little bit of time as well. But I think too many people just want to do it one way. And when it doesn't work quickly that way, they stop.
Yeah.
Again, when it's for this long-term success, you're thinking in long-term, points of view, then you should be comfortable with the fact that it's gonna take a long time to get there as well.
Yeah. And I love how you mentioned that earlier when you were like, I just came to the realization that me working at Disney, at Disney was probably not going to happen. So I need to create my own path and take it from there.
Exactly, and It's so weird, but I think when you do that and you do it right and you put in the time, things just start coming your way, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not luck because when things do come your way, you have to be prepared and you have to capitalize
Mhm.
on it, and you have to
Yeah.
provide the value that the person is seeking in that regard. So, as long
Right.
as you
Right.
stick with it, just keep going, that you're gonna start attracting stuff.
Right. Yeah, I love that. So, do you at what point in the game did you build up your Instagram, like start taking your marketing outside of your blog and put it on social media?
It was immediate for me, especially, in, the age that I've lived in and the age that I've grown up in, that's always been a part of it,
Mhm.
even in college, for me, I took many a social media class on
Oh,
marketing, on, including it in everything. Um, so I
that's good.
knew yeah, I knew once I launched something that
Mhm.
had to be a component immediately.
Yeah.
Um, I think the difficult part is finding that balance, because when you're launching all these things and you're learning how to do a podcast and how to write a blog and publish a blog and build a website, those are all new skills, and
Mhm.
like anything, like shooting a basketball or swinging a golf club, those skills are gonna come with muscle memory.
Mhm.
So, it's going to take a lot of time
Yeah.
in the early stages to really get, comfortable with, "I can knock out a podcast like that easy." But in the interim, that's taken a long time, so what's kinda fallen by the wayside? Posting the social, coming up with strategy for social. Um, so I think that I kinda neglected it a little bit early on just because I was
Mhm.
producing so much, but once you kinda get it up and running, then you can start focusing more on the marketing and then optimizing that so that everything is kind of going along at it, and, you're on this track where you're working hard, but you're not going crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was just thinking. So do you repurpose your content a lot?
And not as much as I should, but
Okay.
I think repurposing, people think of it as, um, seeing it on Instagram and on Facebook and on YouTube and in your podcast. But I think what
Mhm.
repurposing can also be is you have these talking points in your head, and you know that all these topics are always going to come up, what in whatever the context might
Mhm.
be. So if you have, it's almost like an elevator pitch. You have your elevator pitches memorized in your head. You open up Instagram, you do a story, you're on a podcast where you're asked the same question, or you're doing a podcast where you ask the same question, or you're on a live, or you have
Right.
another blog. You have this information already in your head. You're just
Yeah.
quickly churning it out
Regurgitating. Yeah, yeah.
because you never know where these people are going to come from. If it's going to be the first time that they're listening to you or the 100th time, it might have not stuck with them the first 99 times, but now that 100th time, it's going to stick. So I think repurposing, you
Yeah,
can think
smart.
about it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. Um, all right, before we hop off of here, tell us a little bit about your Disneyland trip because I was obsessed following following in your stories. So I was like, oh my gosh, he's living the dream life right now as I am sitting at school watching his Disneyland
That
stories.
was that was a wild 2 weeks, because I went on a Disney cruise, and then 3 days later, I went to Disneyland. Yes,
I was like,
please
ah,
please feel bad for me and my miserable life. Um,
yeah, so bad.
I'd never been to Disneyland, and it was really like, it was like Mecca. It was like, this is the Holy Land.
Yeah.
Um And for me, it was always I wanted the trip to kinda be perfect, right? Like, I
Mhm.
wanted the right number of days. I wanted to go at the right time of year. I wanted this, that, and the other. One time I just graduated college, and my family, we took a trip out to California, and we were driving from San Diego to LA, and my mom and
Mhm.
I were like to my dad, "Hey, maybe we stop at Disneyland." He's like, "No, it's out of the way. Like, it's not gonna work."
Out of the way.
We drove right past on the highway, like, we saw all of
No.
it, and at the next place we stopped, he was like, "Yeah, that's my bad, I totally forgot that it was that close." But in actuality, I was fine with it because I
Mhm.
didn't wanna just stop there for a couple hours and then
Right.
go from there.
Keep going, yeah.
But then the same thing happened to me, like working for Disney. I realized, you know what? I'm hyping it up way too much in my head. I can't wait for it to be perfect. I can't wait for the perfect opportunity. I gotta go. And this opportunity did come to me in the form of an AEP, which is an agent education program, which Disney
Cool.
invites some travel agents on to train them, to introduce them to different products that they sell. Disneyland is a
Awesome.
product that Disney sells. So they invited my agency out there. I got selected to go on behalf of them, and it was awesome because we got to do a lot of really cool stuff. So not only was it my first time in Disneyland, um, but we got to do some stuff like a private viewing of World of Color,
Ooh.
private viewing section for the Christmas parade. It was also Christmas. It was December when I went.
Mhm.
We got to be the first ones in California Adventure one day before anyone else was
Mhm.
left. First ones on Web Slingers, which is the new Spider-Man ride. Um,
Mm.
so it was really, really, really cool. And the one takeaway from Disneyland is I just can't wait to go back.
Now, how many days were you there? Remind me.
4.
Okay.
We
But
had
you
some
had some conferences, right?
yeah, so we had some training
Yeah.
on basically 2.5 of the days, but our
Mhm.
final day we were able to, it was whatever we wanted to do. So I got a super late flight out.
Yeah.
But additionally, we had a morning to ourselves. We had afternoons to ourselves, evenings
Mhm.
to ourselves. So we had a lot of time to go into the park. And because we were staying at the Disneyland hotel, it's so easy. You
Yeah.
walk right
It's like
there,
right there.
you bounce back and forth between the 2 parks. If you ever use Genie Plus in Disney World, it's so much more complicated here than it is out there. It works fantastic out there. It's just a delightful, delightful place, to go. It was awesome.
Nice. I love that review. I haven't been. I've only been once, and it was in 2017, I think.
Yeah.
And it was like a day. Like it was just like a full day. I'm like, I definitely need some more time to explore and do all the things out here. But it was really cool. I remember it was neat.
So many new
Um,
things too that you gotta experience, and more things coming to that resort as well.
yeah, I know. I keep getting like email updates about it. And I'm like, what is going on out
Yeah.
there? I heard the World of Color show is really awesome.
The new one, yeah. So now
Yeah.
that's all Disney 100, the 100th anniversary of the Disney company. So they have new World of Color, new fireworks, the parade,
Oh.
Magic Happens is coming back. There's a whole lot going on at Disneyland.
Oh, cool. Well, maybe this will be the summer. I need to head out
Yeah.
there then
Oh, yeah.
while all the fun stuff's going on.
Um,
Okay, super quick question. What's your favorite? And I know everyone asks this, and you probably are like, I don't have one. Or maybe you do. But what's your favorite attraction at Walt Disney World?
My favorite attraction at Walt Disney World is the
Yeah.
People Mover because I
Yeah.
love the People Mover because the People Mover is the attraction my mom worked on.
Oh.
And from the People Mover, you can see the attraction that I worked on in Silver Door Spine Train.
Oh, well, that is a very nice answer.
There you go.
Everyone's usually like Flight of Passage
Yeah.
or, that's why I was like, maybe you don't have one. Um, what about favorite park? Do you have a favorite
I
park?
love Hollywood Studios. I love Hollywood Studios not because of the attractions per se, but I just love that old school Hollywood
The
vibe,
vibe.
that
Yeah.
1920s vibe, and I loved it through its dark times when, half the park was behind walls. I stood by her and her darkest hours, and now she's a shining star.
You are devoted.
I'm devoted.
Love it. What about favorite hotel? Do you have a favorite hotel?
Animal Kingdom Lodge, and I
Mm,
think, the cool part, Kidani, probably more specifically, just because of how secluded it is, but for that reason, it's not very close to anything other than Animal Kingdom,
yeah.
so it really has to up the ante
Be
on
awesome.
everything. So, from the theme,
Mhm.
the animals, the vibe, the, dining options, I think it's the best by far.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite too. I haven't stayed there in a while, but we just ate there sometime October maybe or some other time I was down there and I was like, "This is the best."
So okay,
Reminded again why this is the best. Yeah. All
exactly.
right, and, okay, favorite restaurant?
Favorite restaurant, Homecoming, Disney
I've
Springs.
never eaten
Love
there.
love it. Pro tip, the to any and all. So even though it's really hard to find, a reservation, or it can be.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
ample seating at the bar inside and outside, full menu, so you can order whatever you want there, and you can just walk right up.
Nice, nice. Good tip. All right, so where can everyone connect with you? And I will put this in the show notes too, guys, so that you can find Connor, but tell us all the places and all the ways they can work with you.
All the ways you can find me, you can go to wdwopinion.com. You can email me, Connor, Conor, at wdwopinion.com. And across all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I am at WDW Opinion.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, wait, how can they work with you? Because you said you're a travel agent.
Yes. So if you want to plan your next perfect Disney vacation, whether it's Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise Line, or Universal, I do Universal as well. You can reach out to me again, Connor, Conor, at wdwopinion.com. Just let me know when you're thinking of going, how long you're thinking of going, and we can start working together.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Connor. I really appreciate this. Love hearing your story.
Thank you for having me.
So welcome.